Look at this rare creature. It was a free-growing wild boar. Although now it is dead, but it's still very difficult for hunters to kill. After all, these animals are unusually intelligent, and it's very destructive, but it's still no match for these guys. Carbon-based biological comforter. As the forest appeared, a vicious creature appeared. Troy contacted the other hunters, coming here to help the locals, and it has to be done fast. Otherwise, this area will be devastated. Troy and Daniel at this time, heading to a farm, responding to a request for help from an old friend. And this friend, Sean, is still on the tractor. What is being done to the land? But after the three of them said hello, Sean also told the two people why they asked. That's the cattle that are raised here. Pigs started appearing a year ago to do harm to the cattle that are being farmed. But even if we killed a few of them, but there are a lot of pigs in the back. This is very interesting. The residents don't seem to know the danger here. They keep coming to the farm. It's like someone put a curse on this place. Cause a lot of damage here. Because these boars are an invasive species. And they're omnivores. Plus, they multiply very quickly. This will do great damage to the local environment. Just like this place right here. That's what wild boars are doing here. It's a real wasteland. Look at this place. They also understand Sean. Why? We're gonna need both of Troy to help. As the two discussed for a long time, the moon also appeared in the sky. Troy and Daniel start their rounds. Look for the movements of those boars and determine where to set the trap. Then Daniel smelled it, the stink of the boar. But look in this forest. It's still very difficult. Then the footprints of wild boar were found. It looks very fresh, like those wild boars. I just had a meal here, and they're still eating it. Because wild boars are nocturnal animals. Only sleep during the day. Now Troy looks at so many traces. Very nervous now, because these boars are smart. They also sneak up on people. This made Troy very nervous. But the good thing is they found it. Goals to do tonight. As the next day came, in the afternoon the hunters returned again, with the two still on their way to their destination. Due to the need to place a dozen traps, a special assistant was brought in for this purpose. That's Anna, the experienced bow hunter. As the three men arrived at their destination, he got out of the car and moved the cage down and put it in the woods. But Troy still has some doubts about this thing. But after Daniel demonstrated it,
when the hog approaches, certainly they're gonna...
I got you.
Okay.
Sure, it all seems to work. Then he quickly carried a bag of corn and dumped it into the cage. I got one though, but there are still a dozen cages to be placed. The three did not dare to stop for a moment. With the sun rising on the third day, the crowd began to return to the trap. As the three get off again, curious to know what the trap has to offer. But the three came to the place, found that most of the corn was eaten, but the companion in the trap. But it wasn't triggered by the boar. This made the three people immediately dumbfounded. I can't believe it. Today's wild boars are surprisingly smart. But this is only the first. Other gains are not guaranteed. As the three men came to the second front, found out it happened here too. Same thing as the first trap, but it's right next to the boar trail. Daniel looks at everything. I feel like I'm going crazy. I had no idea these boars were so. That's how smart you are. Let the unsuperstitious Daniel. I'm starting to believe what Sean said. Who has put a curse on this place? It's a little inexplicable otherwise. Everything that's going on here. In the early 1700s, after all, those religious beliefs are very well known. But the good news is Daniel is an experienced hunter. He soon came up with a new idea. Decided to find Cody first. Let it fly with people in the sky. Look for the wild boar running on the ground. And that solution was achieved. The approval of the other two. With Daniel on the phone looking for Cody. The people also went home to rest. With the arrival of day 4, the hunting party split into two groups. Daniel and Anna will be on the hovercraft. Hunt those boar that are still free. And Troy and Cody are in the helicopter. Find those boars and hunt them. Follow the two teams. Anna has her own bow and arrows ready. Troy is also firing guns on the plane. They just loaded the gun. Be ready to strike the boar at any time. As the two teams continue to search, Troy suddenly found something. Cody turned the plane around right away, hovering over the boar's head, while Daniel was sailing. Get Anna and the two dogs. Troy immediately points them in the right direction. Anna also drew her bow to the full aim at the boar's body, but there was never a shot. Let the boar run there instead. And Anna never took the shot. It's because of Cody. Although the plane is in the sky to help find, but the blades of the straight machine create the wind. Keeps Anna from getting a good shot. It's always rocking out there, but Anna's got a lot of experience and still managed to kill it. Then Anna and Daniel hurried off the boat, put this boar on a boat, and in heavens Troy, and told Cody to keep flying. But because also wild boar too heavy, the two lost a little time. At this time Troy found another pig. Then the fire began. But the aim is a little bad. I didn't even get a shot off. But it seems that the boar is a little more resilient. Anna's shooting an arrow. Wild boars can still run. But the good news is that after Anna shot an arrow, the boar also fell to the ground. But Troy was there. Shoot the other boar. That's a little fast. After the trio shot multiple wild boars in a row, thought this place was cleaned up, so he decided to return. When 3 people on the way back, Troy's phone rang. I picked up the phone and found out it's Sean the farmer. According to his description, there are also many wild pigs on the farm. This makes the trio quite unbelievable. After all, it's been hunted here, with nearly 30 wild boars. But now there's only one possibility. You just came in here from somewhere else. So the 3 decided to discuss it first. Return to the farm for the hunt. But when the 3 were at Daniel's house, after discussing it for a long time, I still can't figure it out. How did the boar reappear so quickly? It could only have just entered. This reminds the 3 of them again. The curse Sean said at the beginning. So Daniel decided to keep one in a row. A lady of local renown. With Daniel on the phone, the 2 exchanged greetings. Daniel described it to Danny. The state of Sean's farm today. After all, the 3 had already hunted 30 pigs there. Now you have to believe in the curse. This unscientific explanation, as the 3 men returned to the farm again, decided that while I waited for Danny, set up some bait for the boar to facilitate 3 people tonight. The hunt for these wild boars. As the bait is placed in different places, the 3 men were very confident that the boar would come. As night comes again, the locals Daniel contacted, and we arrived at Sean's farm. So after saying hello to Danny, Daniel restated his difficulties. And Danny on the other side, after she's been briefed, I'll get 3 of you ready right away. And after doing it together, Danny is about to start her own work. It's just that the floor is covered. The Taiji diagram of China, not the usual cross in America. With Danny talking on your ear, and burn unknown things there. Light the candle in your hand. Then he took the nail and put it around the stall. But Danny's description. These 4 are coffin nails. After putting these in place, Danny sprinkled black salt on it again. And then I told everyone to wait around. This will soon remove the curse. Although Danny's is a little messy. But the hunters began the hunt anyway. As the crowd came to the bait place previously laid out, he got out of the car and started hunting. Through the cameras they left behind, you can already see a lot of wild boars. 3 of them were still by the car. How are we going to hunt tonight? And after a long discussion, and finally decided on tonight's course of action, split up in the hunter's ancestral way. Hunt boar as much as you can, but forget the body, and turn off the headlights in case of danger. And he was screaming for help. As the 3 men began to walk toward the forest, the sound of wild boars began to be heard. Daniel takes aim right away and deliver a fatal blow to the boar. As Daniel approaches, turns out this wild boar is really big, not like the other one, and not far away in Troy. A laid-back boar was also spotted. He quickly approached and raised his gun and fired a single fatal bullet, but it did not succeed. Anna, meanwhile, is also looking, only he's holding a bow. As she thinks in this case, a bow and arrow is more convenient and concealed than a shotgun. Suddenly, Anna heard the crack of a tree branch, so he quickly began to approach. After discovering it was a wild boar, look closer again and draw the bow full in his hand, silently shot the boar in the body, even to ensure death, and put an arrow in it. And now Troy, a wild boar has been spotted again, so he quickly raised his gun and shot, and then immediately take a closer look. Turns out this one weighs 115 pounds. This isn't one of those houses. These boars are every kilo of meat, but it takes a month longer. And Daniel on the other side, fighting a wild boar. And this one's going that's really fast. Still not as fast as Daniel's gun. Follow Daniel to touch. I find the flesh on this head is really tight. And on the other side in Troy, reloading the gun. Turns out they found a herd of wild boars. But then a pig suddenly looked up. This frightened Troy into silence, and immediately raised the gun and shoot. At the same time, he was calling out to 2 other people. Watch out for those wild boars running. And at this time, Daniel also suddenly shot. Shoot at those boars. With 3 people shot and killed there. The 3 men successfully hunted many wild pigs. But to prove he was serious about his work, decided to call the farmer Sean. As the 3 men loaded the boar, Sean drove up too. As the 4 meet at the hunting grounds, immediately start approaching the truck on the side. Have Sean watch the boar outside, looking at the car full of dead pigs. It was a great emotion, and I even found this inside. And the head weighs nearly 275 pounds. Then Daniel suddenly said from one side, guaranteed to have the boar here. All of them will be hunted. After all, on this one night, the three have hunted 40 wild boars. If that doesn't solve the problem. So what happened here? It's going to be very complicated. As the 2 weeks passed, Troy, Daniel, and Anna, and back to Sean's farm, decided to check out your results. But the constant observation on the road, there was not a boar in sight. As the 3 came to Sean, just go up and say hello. At this time, Sean also expressed his gratitude to the 3. After all, last time, there are no more wild boars on Sean's farm. And it all happened because of 3 people. Well, that's all for this program. Give it a thumbs up, and let's look forward to the next episode. Everyone knows in the swamp. That accident happens all the time. Only this accident will not affect the life. And this accident can successfully threaten the safety of life. But catching these sharks in the water, for these experienced hunters, you can still make an arrest with ease. With a sudden appearance in the swamp. A puzzling question. That's what this body of water has become. A place full of death. In order to be able to find this problem, Troy left early in the morning. He was going to look for his brother first. And guys just like Troy, they love to hunt alligators. But then there was an accident. That's the best water for both of them. Now it's a dead zone. I had to find Troy to help. As the 2 set out for the port, Troy, according to Guy, it feels like it might be because the waters there are lower than ever. Although it is true, but Guy still felt there was more to it. As the 2 men arrived at the port, the 2 men also put the boat into the water. When the 2 entered the destination of the trip, the 2 also set out to find out why. But I have to say, Guy and Troy, it really looks like that. Then Troy suddenly gasped. But when the camera looks over, like there's nothing there, Guy quickly began to look around. As Troy begins to tell, turns out it's the Phoenix Eye. There was not a living creature in sight. And the water level here has dropped a lot. Can be in 2 constant forward. Still no sign of life. Even those damn crocodiles. It's all out of sight here. Said Guy suddenly. It's not just crocodiles that can't see. Even the catfish that overrun the swamp. They all disappeared without a trace here. Even before the 2 move on, Troy found something. So there's a drag mark on the front. There's 2 feet of grass there. They're all a little bit lower. This made Troy want to look ashore. And it's a decision that Guy agrees with. As the boat approached the shore, Troy also began to walk to land. Because those crocodiles have big appetites. It eats up to 60% of the creatures in the water. And now there's nothing in these waters. Had to come ashore to find food. With Troy searching the shore, the common opossum and raccoon. Then Troy saw something. Quickly will be around the things scattered. And there are other places as well. Quickly told his brother. There must be a lot of animals here. But this makes them even more confused. There's a lot more life here. But why did those crocodiles leave? It made Troy think. There must be something else out there, right? Affecting the survival of those crocodiles. Then they remembered another creature. It's the carp in the swamp. After all, the fish like to follow the boat. And now I've been gone so long, and I haven't seen it. So, I decided to find a professional fisherman. He's good with a fishing rod, Zach. Look what's really going on here. Otherwise, there's no way to continue the investigation. As the 2 began to return. Still can't imagine why there are no crocodiles here. As the next day came, Zach came to the dock too. Get ready with Troy and Guy. We're going to investigate together. In order to help 2 people. Zach, where's a net? Let's see if we can catch something. And Troy also turned to Zach. It tells about the difficulties we are facing now. After all, there's basically no clue, right? Just try everything, you know. Let Zach do the trick. With Troy and Zach on the way, the 2 also began in the swamp, galloping down the river. As the 2 men arrived at their destination, see if you can catch anything here. And now Zach knows something's wrong. Those often run after them. As Zach unwrapped the net in his hand, get ready to take this 14-foot thing, throw it into the water. And this kind of fishing net is perfect. Catch the creatures in the water. But look at the calm water. Zach decided to throw it more often. See if he can catch anything. With the nets thrown out, Zach started pulling back too. With the net pulled to the hand, there's nothing in there. So Zach quickly threw it again. I'm just throwing it around. But life is abundant in the swamp. It's going to pull something out, but it's empty twice in a row. It made Zach feel terrible. But for now, we have to move on. Ships available on the 3rd net. 4th and 5th net to the boat. Still nothing in there. This situation makes even Zach suspicious. Troy's brother's hot spot is here. After all, even the baby crocodiles. There's no sign of them. But Zach just saw a long bill. And this creature is similar to a crocodile. Will go around eating anything. They can even grow to over 200 pounds. Add to that the hundreds of teeth in its mouth. Make it look similar. A fish from millions of years ago. Although crocodiles mainly feed on fish. But longbill and alligator eat the same diet. If this fish were to overrun here, that would definitely affect the survival of the crocodiles. So I decided to do something about it. That is to return home first. Get ready for the next thing. After the two returned, at home in Troy, the two men began to prepare for a rest. Start with something that floats, then tie a string to it. But because those long-billed squamids have teeth, so just use one hook. Obviously, there will be some not enough. So Zach prepared 2 hooks. As the two continue to produce, it will all be finished in no time. Look at the bottles in front of you. I'm going to put it in the swamp tomorrow. As the sun rises again, Zach and Troy return to the dock. Put all the traps behind the boat. Troy set sail. After an hour of experience, back to the hot spot, as Zach straightens the hook, put up fresh fish, right into the water. Follow the traps down one by one. The two also finished all the arrangements. After 2 hours of waiting, the two men returned again to the location of the trap. But then I noticed something different. Zach hooked this thing right away. Troy also stepped forward and grabbed the thing. Turns out it's also an invasive grass carp, but there are quite a few wounds on it. The stomach wasn't just bitten open. His head was even torn off. Doesn't look like the work of a crocodile. After all, alligators swallow fish in one gulp. Apparently this grass carp that's been cut up, it was bitten by a long bill. This allowed the two to identify the problem here. It's these long-billed squamids that do it. The whole person starts to worry, afraid the fish will go somewhere else. 2 people quickly sped up their speed. Soon a bottle was found. Troy will approach immediately. Zach is also used to hookup bottles. It can be found after pulling up the bottle. The hook was empty. This makes 2 people very uncomfortable. But we still have to look for other bottles. With Zach making another discovery, they got close right away. Zach also hooked the bottle. But on top of this trap, there's still something there, but nothing took the bait. It made Troy look bad, starting to wonder if it is. The problem with long-billed squamids. That's when Zach found a bottle. Quickly let Troy sail closer. As Zach hooks the trap, quickly told Troy to pick up the gun. Obviously, there's something on this trap. As Zach pulls the fish to the surface, Troy fired the bullet right away. And when Zach pulled out the dead fish, Troy no longer doubted. Looks like it really is the long bill to turn this place into a dead zone. As the two approach another trap, Zach just hooked the trap. Can be found after pulling. This is not a longbill, but a catfish. To their great surprise, because it's so close to the ocean, it's just not suitable for this kind of freshwater fish. But this thing doesn't need to be on board. So Zach kicks the fish straight back into the water. But 4 traps in a row. But there's only one longbill. This makes 2 people very melancholy. But there is no other way. Just keep on looking. I've been walking all this time without seeing a trap. This made the 2 men curious. It made Troy want to give up. After all, you don't even know why. But then Zach suddenly saw a fin. He quickly showed it to Troy. And it's very shark-like. And a bull shark. But this creature is basically coastal, living in those salty waters. And they were known for their fierceness. It's not too far from the fresh water. It's just weird, and that got them thinking, this may not be a simple matter. So Zach decided to find a friend and get some fresh bait and more fishing rods. Let's see if we can catch some more. After all, the people Zach was trying to contact, and an expert shark hunter. So they decided to call it a day. Wanted to go home and get ready for tomorrow. When the dawn breaks, Zach just boarded the boat. His friend Bill arrived too. After the crowd had said hello, Troy told him about the difficulty. And when Bill heard that, indicates if the problem really exists, the stuff you brought will be a good help. As the 3 set out, Bill and Zach were there talking. Looks like the 2 of them are on their own. That's a lot of confidence. As the 3 arrived at the location, Bill said to Troy, I'm going to lay some traps on this side. As Zach drops the anchor, he opened the box full of fish. But then I opened the top bag, took out the bottom fish, and spread it on the river to attract those sharks. And Bill on one side was cutting fish and hanging on a fishing hook. After making sure the fish is hung, Bill just threw it into the water. And after Zach repeats everything, throw the hook out of your hand. With the 2 of them getting everything ready, the 3 men waited quietly in the boat. After waiting for an hour, Bill's got something on his hook. Looking at the fishing boat in front of me, suddenly he pulled the rod up. With Bill there pulling and tugging. It must be something down there. An active shark. That's when Zach got a hit. But after a little tugging, Zach's stuff got away. But the good thing is Bill still has it. They were immediately standing next to each other. As Bill pulls the shark to the surface, Troy snagged it right away. With the shark being put on the boat, the 3 were very excited. But after that there was a silence. Didn't expect the problem here. It turns out these sharks did it. Then a fin suddenly glided across the water. Zach quickly throws out the hook. As the whole person becomes still, suddenly he pulls the hook back like crazy. Zach is in a pretty bad way, but he managed to pull him to the side of the boat. Troy stood aside and waited, and put the shark straight in his pocket. Then he hurriedly took it to the ship, and Bill on one side looked at the shark. Turns out this one doesn't have any fat on it. Definitely a top predator. But then they suddenly became very surprised. There was a bottle flying around, so the three men quickly sailed close. Zach also hooked the bottle with a fishing hook, pulled to the surface with what's underneath. The shark was struggling there, and they're drilling down there. But Zach used his brute force to pull him to the side of the boat. Have Troy put it in the net, and this huge shark exists. And it proves that the crocodiles, why don't you just stay here? But here's the problem. And look for those crocodiles. Where did they go? After all, after finding them, it also means you'll find a bunch of crocodiles. After an afternoon of searching, the sun also rose the next day, and Troy's got his own brother. We're going to show him where the crocodiles are. As the two men boarded the boat, they set off. Troy took Guy right away, hurtling through the swamp. As the two slowly approached, Guy noticed a difference too. That is, the environment here is better. Crocodile tracks were also found, with Troy flashing a creepy smile. Guy spotted a crocodile too. That's a lot of stuff. That many in one place. Well, that's all for this program. Give it a thumbs up, and let's look forward to the next episode.